Well, for some analysis of the US midterm elections and the fight for control of Congress, we're now joined via Zoom, by Professor of Political Science and International Relations at Cyprus College, Peter Mathews. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you.
All right. So last election, Joe Biden gets 51.6%, 51.3%, and Donald Trump 46.8%. Why should this shift significantly to have such a close race now?
Well, that election was remarkably unique in that many voters wanted to change away from Trump and the Trumpists and the chaos and acrimony going on back in 2019, 2020. They wanted to get everyone to make a change. That's why they voted for Joe Biden, and he offered a different vision. And today, on the other hand, they've had 2 years of Joe Biden's and the Democratic majority in Congress, and they have some problems that have arisen in terms of the economy, mainly the inflation rates, and as well as the cost of living. And people are struggling to pay the rent and the food. And yet, it's not entirely the Democrats or Biden's fault. There are a lot of other factors involved with, for example, the war in Ukraine with Russia, and you're seeing the cost of gasoline going up because of a shortage of oil now or the embargo on Russia, as well as the OPEC reducing production. All those things have been going on. COVID, Biden was successful with helping to get COVID under control and get the vaccine out. Yet people see that, look, we've still got problems. There are variants coming up. It's a mixed bag, and people are looking at what possibilities it could be. Unfortunately, people don't understand that you need more time sometimes to get things done, but people really are suffering economically. There are also issues like abortion, which are very important for Democrats, Democratic women, and some men as well, and that could be driving Democrats to the polls. So it's very close because of those two cross-cutting forces.
All right, so if 2020 was about getting rid of Trump, is it a risk then for a number of these candidates to have Trump standing up at these rallies trying to get supporters?
It is in some districts, absolutely, because President Trump has brought them in during the primaries, and they're tied to him, and he's tied to them, and he's not a very popular figure in the United States overall. And so he can bring them down by a few percent as well by being there, highly visible in some of those states and districts. And so they're still having him there because they want to turn that base out, that Trump base, the right-wing Republican MAGA candidates. The election deniers are still relying on Trump, and they're hoping they can get the base out, but they're going to maybe lose some other of the middle-of-the-road vote or the swing vote because of Trump. We'll have to wait and see how things go. Like Pennsylvania, for example, is a very good example. The Lieutenant Governor, Fetterman, John Fetterman, who's now running on the Democratic ticket for Senate, U.S. Senate, very important seat because the Senate is 50-50 right now. John Fetterman suffered a stroke recently, a few months ago. He's recovering from it, doing quite well, actually. But Dr. Oz, a celebrity doctor, who is a Trump-endorsed candidate, is caught up to Fetterman in the polls. It's very, very close right now. So you have to wonder if Trump is going to hurt or help when he goes over there to campaign. Certainly, President Obama really helped a lot campaigning on the Democratic side because President Obama is very popular among the general population of the United States, but mostly among Democrats and independents. He can only be an added asset. That's why he did very well and helped Fetterman to stay above water. We'll have to see how it turns out, though.
In the report that we just played before we spoke to you, we heard President Biden say that they've reached an inflection point and that democracy is on the ballot. Is this political speak, or could there be a shift of significant proportions if the Republicans gain control of Congress and the Senate?
It is an inflection point. He's absolutely correct. This could be a significant shift of tremendous proportions if the Republicans, who are primarily led by the MAGA, the so-called Make America Great Again faction of Trump people, who are very, very anti-democratic, most of them. They deny the election actually was won by Biden. They themselves are planning, like Carrie Lake, the one running for governor, a MAGA Republican in Arizona, is saying that when she was asked, will you recognize the result and accept the result of the election that's coming up on Tuesday? And she said, if I win, I'll accept it. This is unconscionable. This is a complete reversal of what we've been used to in America. The United States, the rule of law principle is extremely important as a basis of our constitutionalism. And that means that the losing side has to accept the results as part of the law of the land, and then go back to fight another day, to win another day, but not to hold on and say, we won, the system is rigged, it's cheating. No, if you do that, you're delegitimizing the system of democracy that we had in this country. And that's why it's so dangerous if those type of election deniers get elected, because there are many of them running. There are over 300 and something, about 320 candidates who are election deniers, all Republicans running at all different offices, primarily Congress, and even for Secretary of State, and they're in charge at the state level of elections. Governors were there, election deniers, over 320 or so of them running. If a big number of them win, this could be really problematic, not only in this election, but next time around in 2024, when it comes time to really ascertain that there was an election held, it was accurate. These election deniers will completely reverse the results, very possibly. It is an inflection point. It's much more than that. It's a crisis situation. And I'm hoping the American people will choose those who believe in democracy and legitimacy, and vote against the MAGA faction that could tear America apart, unfortunately.
If the MAGA faction loses, does that then mean the Donald Trump era now is then over? He's talking about 2024, getting back the White House. I suspect he's thinking about himself. Absolutely, he's thinking about himself. He also feels that he can bring back, his mayhem that he brought in for those 4 years. He thinks that if he wins the nomination, which he very well could, even if there are MAGA Republicans and they lose the House and Senate and the Democrats hold on to it, still you've got Trump with millions of followers, and Trump feels that he can bring those followers back again and raise havoc in the next election in 2024 by denying the results once again. And who knows, there may be another insurrection that would occur as occurred on January 6th, which was horribly traumatic and unbelievably unprecedented in this country. He could still have effect after if he does, and his people lose on 2022, he could have major effect in 2024 if he runs. And I think he's leaning toward running. I do think he's going to run. We'll have to wait and see. If he win, and he'll win the nomination. He's very popular among the Republican Party overall. At least 70 or 80% of the Republicans actually support him still. A large majority of Republicans support Trump over people like DeSantis, Ron DeSantis of Florida, who's an alternative, but he's not going to have a chance against Trump, and Trump's going to be very dangerous if he wins the nomination. It'll happen. It probably will happen if he runs. All right, as we start to round up our conversation, perhaps you can give our viewers a little bit of insight in terms of the role of Congress and the Senate and why these houses are so important. Yes.
The Congress is the first branch of government. It's actually in Article 1 of the Constitution. Article 2 is the presidency. Article 3 is the court system. Congress has been given the power by the founders to make the laws of this land. And every bill that becomes law has to pass through both houses of Congress. Those houses are co-equal, even though one is called the upper house, that's the Senate, and the lower house, the House of Representatives. But they're co-equal because they have to both pass bills to become law. They also have the power to override vetoes. If the president vetoes a bill, the House and Senate can, by a 2/3 majority each, override the veto and pass a law without the assent of the president. That's a lot of power. And then you also have Congress as the only branch that can actually declare war against a foreign country. The only branch that can declare war. And Congress is the only branch that can fund the war. The founders gave it a lot of power in that regard. It's an extremely important branch. That's why I'm really concerned that why Americans seem to neglect the midterm elections when the president is not on the ballot, but Congress is. It's important that everyone gets out and votes because it's a huge election, as important as the presidency in 2024.
Peter Mathews, thank you very, very much indeed for giving us some valuable insights into these midterm elections. Thanks for your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, some analysis there from Cyprus College lecturer, political science and international relations, Peter Mathews, talking about the US midterm elections. Pretty important. And the Democrats are pushing the story that this is an important inflection point.